Um, but the project I am about to tell you, it's called Música para Respirar, 24/7. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce myself, and this is my wonderful partner in the crime of making music, and she's also my wife. I'm very lucky to have this wonderful person at my side. And it's so funny, we gave this presentation 2 weeks ago to McGill University, entrepreneurship department. And after we finished, the first question was, somebody was kind of shy, saying, "I'm so sorry if I'm getting too personal, but how is it working with your partner?" And I said, "Thank you so much for asking that, and I think we deserve another masterclass on that topic." Because it's one of the most wonderful things, working with people that are very close and related, but it's also challenging. But I think that challenge, it creates something, I mean, if you can manage it, transcendental. Because you get not only to know somebody, but you absorb things that, with colleagues that work from far. So this is Camila Barrientos, my wife. She is from Cochabamba, Bolivia. She went to Interlochen, Manhattan School of Music. In New York, she was playing with New York Phil and Paul, doing all wonderful things. They won the Fish Off competition. She was all about new music, and before getting the orchestral gigs, she's a Buffet Campon artist, and we are both co-founder of the Bolivian Chamber Music Society. And I am from São Paulo, Brazil. I went to school at the University of São Paulo. Then I came to Mississippi for my master's, did my performance diploma here, and then went to Memphis. And now I'm the principal trumpet of the Bacchante Philharmonic in São Paulo, guest of São Paulo Symphony. I play natural trumpet with the Portland Baroque Orchestra until we have a pandemic. But and also do some cool things here in the US, some festivals and some other early music work. This is the institution that Camila and I co-founded in 2014. We were students in New York, and I think we always had this drive to be doing things that we wanted to do. And when we met here in the US, we're both Latin American, and we know, we have a different view on things based on our own experience on where we grew up and what things matter for our communities. So that's what we wanted to be doing. Camila, she moved to the US when she was 14 years old, and she lives here in the US for half of her life, for about 15 years. And every time when both of us went back to Bolivia, she would never play, and she's doing all these amazing things around the world, and never ever, showing that and affecting people in her own home. And that applied, in a certain extent, to myself, but mostly we're looking at, Latin America in general. We decided to do it in Bolivia because it made sense for, our grounds, and we felt that there's a need, an extreme need for experiences like the ones that we were, wanting to provide. I like this picture because this is a Messiaen, one of my favorite pieces. Of course, I was not playing. We programmed it. I think something special about this picture. This concert is in La Paz. It's 4,000 meters altitude, so high, so difficult to play a wind instrument. But I think because of this Cholita hat here. Cholitas, they have different outfits in different parts of the country. It's all related to the mountains. So if you go a little lower, they have different size of skirts. In La Paz, it's so cold. The skirts go all the way down to the feet, and they use this very typical hat. And this isn't a fancy governmental hall that we're playing, and this translates what we want. We want to have everyone coming to what we do, and we want to do it in ways that make sense to everyone involved, especially in a country so diverse like Bolivia. La Sociedad established in 2014, and when we started, our mission was to make great chamber music accessible to all in Bolivia and Latin America, and was born out of the desire to play in Bolivia and share our music to our communities. So what we do when we go to Bolivia, we take, we have all sorts of things. We play concerts in regular settings, but we want to take music to where people are. And so this is one of those. This was one of the first ones that we tried. So this is Soldier's Tale, and we're playing for, who knows, 200 kids. And I made the adaptation, so have you played Soldier's Tale, trumpet players? No? Stravinsky, you know about the piece, right? Yeah, but about this soldier, that he goes from, he's walking, the first thing that the narrator says, that the soldier's walking in between two mountains in Switzerland, and we made it like a Bolivian story, and the kids were here just like really into it. So we call it in situ concerts. We go to places and take music to the communities. We also have talks and questions, and it's so fascinating to see how what we do is something like that they don't even dream about. They are so excited about every single thing that we present. We also have an educational program called Promesas program. It's an immersive musical and cultural experience for the most talented Latin American students. So we bring artists and we accept 1 or 2 students to be full-time with us. So they have their own chamber music series with us. We also have lessons, and we connect them with institutions outside of Bolivia. So we have students now, in England, at the Royal Academy. We have people here in the US and in other countries. So we do a festival and do tours. This is also a premiere of Wayne Horowitz, pianist, composer based in Seattle, I think, and for the Circus Chaplin movie. And I just love this picture. Some of the concerts, we do a lot of commissions. It's really important for us to commission music that makes sense for communities. So we try to work with Bolivian composers. And this is the theme, so this is a little bit of the background of what happened in 2020 and why Música para Respirar came about. And this is the theme that we chose for today's presentation, the power of music in times of crisis. And I asked this question yesterday, the trumpet masterclass: what are we supposed to do as brilliant, creative, sensible, human, dedicated artists in a world that's seemingly falling apart? And I think that was the experience that we had in 2020. But it seems to be an experience that we have almost every day of our lives if you look to different parts of the globe. Getting outside of our bubbles and just open your eyes. And I think you'll find that relevant. So our answer was Música para Respirar, 24/7. And we also use this quote from Greta Thunberg, that I want you to act as if your house is on fire, because it is, and I think most of you heard that in Davos in 2019. Friday the 13th, 2020, I'm the concert hall playing the Lutoslavsky Concerto for Orchestra, Beethoven Piano Concerto. Was Beethoven year. The arts organizations, they were planning that year for so long, hiring soloists, programming, all sorts of things. São Paulo Symphony had Mary Nausop as the leader, and she was doing the Beethoven, world tour with commissioning, all of that, and they were planning that for so long. Everything canceled, right? Everything canceled. And I think I used that Beethoven quote in a way that, as soon as the pandemic was kind of moving forward, the arts organizations, the only thing they wanted to do is return to play Beethoven, and that was not right for my standard of view. We're going to get there soon. This is Bolivia, a picture from a local newspaper during that time, probably, April, June. Again, you're in the mountains. This is La Paz. This is El Alto. It's about 4,100 meters altitude, and then La Paz goes down in this. It's so difficult to be a doctor there. It's so difficult to breathe in La Paz without COVID. Things were very chaotic everywhere in the world, but we were, having our eyes where we have our dear people, and we could not resist in just being locked in our house without doing anything. I was obsessed about collecting articles and news about the artistic world. So I chose a few to have just to give an idea of what people were talking about and what we were thinking during those times. we were all devastated and trying to find another job and thinking of plans B, C, D's, and E's for the future. In March, April 2020. But here I have things like, will classical music survive? This is by Tom Service, a fascinating guy for those of you interested. He writes for The Guardian, he has a show on BBC Three. And I also used one of his quotes from a talk that we had, what is the point of classical music before, during, and after the COVID crisis? The Met was just like heartbroken, seeing like one of the biggest budgets around the world just say, you know, we're closing our doors this season, and then shortly after saying we're closing our doors for next season. And so a bunch of other things from other countries, UK, the concerto one, that's a Brazilian article, João Luiz Sampaio, in English he says, pelo que seremos lembrados, for what are we going to be remembered as human beings, as musicians. And the one it was really important for me and striking, Essential or Not, that came on the Sunday Times, and it was a, they were asking public opinion, right? The top 5 essential jobs and the top 5 non-essential jobs. And see, 71% of people, they would say artists as non-essential, and then telemarketers, they want us. Yeah. You know, as we are less essential than telemarketers. And I'm going, wait a second, you know, this is not good. And we have to do something that will not only serve, but provoke that idea of being essential. So we called doctors and nurses, because, we felt if we are not needed right now, let's call the people who are essential and ask, how they're doing. So that's what we did. We made a few calls, and they were shocked. We were shocked that they would end the call in tears saying, thank you so much for calling me and hearing me out. Because, I go home every day after those, never-ending shifts of not knowing what's going on, trying to help out, and I cannot go back home and tell my family members what I'm going through, because they worry so much about me. So we said, okay, wow, so what we're going to do is, we're supposed to go to Bolivia for a tour that year. So we had a little small budget, and we said, let's create a system that we are working 24 hours a day, 7 days of the week, for anyone who is working in the front line, so doctors, nurses, or COVID patients. They will write us a message on our social network, and we're going to reply them with a concert. So this is Música para Respirar. So the way we describe it is a new way of experiencing live classical music without the limitations of the concert hall, by delivering free one-to-one concerts via recipient's smartphone or device. It was conceived as an art installation in solidarity with the healthcare workers and COVID patients in Bolivia. We are not using that in art installation, but we wanted to make something that will resonate more than the service, but would give it a different sense of why we're doing it. So how does it work? During an edition of Música para Respirar, up to 30 top musicians from Latin America are available to play 24 hours a day for a week. To receive a concert, anyone sends a private message with their name and phone number to La Sociedad's social networks, and in about 30 minutes or less, a musician somewhere around the world will contact them and perform a live virtual concert specific to that person. This is how it looks like. This is this picture is from retirement home, southern Brazil. And it was, it still is. And I think this is shocking for me, and this is why I'm going crazy about this project, of how we have been doing classical music for so long, and how we can be doing classical music. I don't think this is a general answer to it, but I think it's a way of provoking accessibility, connection. We had 3 goals when we started the project. Number 1, to create a sound space of tranquility and distraction for the listeners. We knew that we were afraid, and we knew that we were all afraid. So we were all in this together, right? So we all went if we're not essential, let's give peace to those who are essential. To have musicians available 24/7 as an exercise of empathy and homage to the frontline health personnel everywhere. That was very important to us, and we did, based on the interviews that we did, and we learned about the shifts that the doctors were doing, we wanted to do the same shifts. So when we hired the musicians, they had to do shifts of 12 hours, sitting there. And when we started, we didn't know how many concerts we were going to play. So the plan was just for you to get into a room, a comfortable room, prepare some snacks and drinks, and sit there and wait. and if your phone ring and if you get a name and a phone number, you call the person and you play a concert for them. If you don't, you just wait. And and then we knew that we were going to enter into this as an experiment of, again, empathy, and that we were going to be changed somehow. And we didn't know that we were going to be that changed, because that made such an impact in ourselves. And of course, to prove that music is healing, and it is truly, truly essential, and I'll repeat, is essential and powerful, not only in times of crisis, but always. And I think as this huge institution, I think we tend to forget that as we go deeper into being focused on specifics. And I think we as students, we simply don't even think about it, because we're so far from the people who want to see you playing. What we found out is that this project was an amazing tool for accessibility, and we are still reaching populations we would not have had access to before. So those are the numbers of the concerts. Again, we walked into this week expecting to play 20, 30 concerts. We ended up not stopping this project, so we are still going with it, and we've done about 4,000 concerts for 15,000 people in 347 cities around the world, in 50 countries. And I think that is that's fascinating. We hired, of course, we didn't want to ask favors to any of our musicians, especially based on those articles and the reasoning why we're doing. So we have to pay. People are unemployed right now, and so it's like, well, let's learn how to fundraise. We've done it, but like small little things. We go to Bolivia, we play, and then come back, and now we wanted to have as many as diverse, setting of musicians to be connected to people. So we were like, and it has to be it has to have a Latin American identity. It was very important for us. At first, we were thinking of having a Bolivian identity, but for the second week that we knew that this was going global, it's like we have to show who we are and and where we are from. It has to do with identity. So we hired a little over 100 musicians from 22 countries, representing some of the various institutions, but also. We didn't want to make it a classical music thing. There's so many interesting things happening in South America. Anywhere, everywhere, right? Here in the US. But for us, it was very important that we could get musicians who are doing folk music in Bolivia. And it's like out of this mind. I mean, we have a Baroque department here. If you look at the archives in Chiquitos, that's like, we had some early Bolivian musicians performing music from the archives. And walking to these concerts and playing it, So this is a few of the pictures of this very diverse group of people. And of course, we were not expecting the impact that we had and the exposure that we had. In that very first week, the news journalists, they were seeking so much for good news. It's like just bad news, and people covering like how is this hospital, this major disaster, and numbers and numbers and numbers. So when they realized, when these people in Bolivia are doing this amazing thing, he went kind of viral on the news. So we have like newspapers in Australia, Europe. The very first week, there was El País in Spain. Música para respirar, the El País, una bocainada de aire. It's like a little taking of air for people who are, going through COVID. That one is funny. I'll try to translate. This one came also ABC. It's a major newspaper in Spain. Anyone speak Spanish here? Yeah. Conciertos por WhatsApp, el último y desesperado invento de música en directo para resistir la pandemia. So we're using WhatsApp because we want to reach, in WhatsApp it's like viral in South America. People, and we want to reach everyone. So they say concerts on WhatsApp, the last and desperate invention of the music to resist the pandemic. That guy who you see, I never knew about, but he's like a pop star in Spain, and he was doing the same thing. He was playing concerts. His concerts costed 80 euros. Like online, right? And he is bragging that how much money he made. I mean, the news was about like the amount of money that he made to play, like 10 of those concerts. And we were doing thousands of those concerts for free. So the full article is kind of, they write a little paragraph about him. They were writing about this reach. And again, we said we cannot stop this thing. Yeah, it became fun in a way. Well, after we started doing the one-to-one concerts, people who were having, have all sorts of jobs, they said, so in this case, teachers, they said, oh wow, so if you're offering those free concerts 24/7, can I have a concert for my class, for my students, my young students somewhere? Like, why not? Sure, that's how we're here. And that happened with mental health institutions, retirement homes, and we have institutions in every single country in Latin America. And we made it one of the purposes. We had to find and reach institutions in each country. Eventually, this is where we're heading at, because it happened organically. So the director of arts of the Boston Public Schools, and this was the first of the bigger things that happened, gets in touch with us. It's like, I think, what you're doing is fascinating. Can we have some of the concerts for the Boston Public Schools? I'm like, yeah, sure. Every week we do about 400 or 500 of those, so it's no problem. We can do how many you want. So we ended up offering them 66 concerts, and this was the first contract that we start signing. And now we are moving towards being sustainable. So we are going from like $3,000, and we've been funded about $100,000 in this year. And now we know we don't want to be depending on donations only and contributions and grants. We want to make this a service that people can actually pay for it. And we love the Robin Hood model that people who can afford it, and we bring it to people who cannot afford it. So Boston Public Schools, they can afford it, luckily, and by that they also provide music to some of the schools in Latin America. So what we develop for them, and this is what we're doing with all the institutions. So when we look at mental health institutions, retirement homes, we present different things. So I'm going to talk about what we're doing for Boston or for the schools. We bring artists, always from Latin America. So in this case, we have 15 artists from 9 countries, including Kelly Hall Tompkins. If you don't know Kelly Hall, she's a violinist, look her up. She is a fascinating woman, and she has an incredible project called Music Kitchen, Food for the Soul. And it's really amazing to get to know that. 66 concerts for 1,523 students of the Boston Public Schools, and those are the schools in the right-hand side. And the aim of these concerts was to encourage the students to see themselves, first of all, represented in the classical music world and use their artistic skills to benefit their communities. So we have themes, we hire musicians, and the only thing that they have to do is to be themselves to the fullest. They have to be, if I hire someone from Colombia, they just have to be so passionate, and we only hire people that we, of course, we have standards. They cannot be only great musicians, they have to be great human beings. And that's equally important for us. And we learned that really quickly, because we start getting feedback from people, from our audience, that they get in the trend of every week receiving concerts. And sometimes we would receive someone saying, we hire we wanted to get bigger, and getting people from major orchestras to create an impact. And we learned that those people, they were not always the people that we needed for a project. Because people would write us saying I have this concert, the person didn't even talk to me, The interaction is an important thing about those concerts. Here I have one quote from one teacher that, for those concerts we walk in, on Zoom of course, in class of 20 kids, and we play, we interact, we dance, we sing, and this teacher wrote us a very emotional email, and she said this was probably the first time my students had heard a professional musician perform live. And I'm going, all right, we are in downtown São Paulo. This project started in Bolivia. São Paulo, we have 30 million people in the metropolitan area. We have 2 orchestras, major orchestras. Boston is much smaller than São Paulo. And they have Boston Symphony, Boston Pops, New England Conservatory, Berklee School of Music, and the students still don't have access to classical music. So do I have to do that from my living room in São Paulo? It's not about myself, but it's about the chances that I think classical music is missing of reaching out in creative ways. Students would always send, we would make exercise, now we're going to play this piece, we'd like to draw something, or why don't you close your eyes, why don't you write something, and then we'd get some cute little things like this one. This is a picture that the teacher took. One of the students saying, I feel like I was running away. This is like a 6 or 7 years old. One of the pictures of Música para Respirar for orphanage, children's home in Bolivia, in Arani. That's Camila, my wife. And we collected so many comments. We always send a survey to the people who heard, and I mean each one of those concepts, including like how much, in a scale from 1 to 5, your emotions were improved, and 98% of the people, they would say 5. Like some would say 4, but that's it. And again, we don't need those numbers because we were there, and I see what happens with them, in those minutes. I don't know if I can play this. This is a video. It was supposed to be, Alm's not here, right? Is there a mouse on this? That I can, no, right? How does it work?
Really intense.
Yeah, that's very intense.
Oh, is
It's
it
supposed to be a video.
Oh.
Well, if it doesn't play, it's all right. But this is like you'd see some of the concerts. Anyways, if Alan comes back, we'll understand how it works. And so, the power of music in times of crisis. I think, and this is what I wanted to say here and yesterday in masterclass, and this is what I've been kind of dying to do for the rest of my life. I believe that nothing less than radical thinking in classical music is not only needed, it's required. I think turning to the 1800s and moving into a place of creating corporate classical music. And then in the 60s, Bernstein said, okay, we're losing space in the radio, why not to add another concert a week and another one, and then we're playing 4 concerts, and we're producing. And I think we're sometimes forgetting and planning so much ahead what we have to do with music that we lose, it's a compromise, I think. You lose some sort of spontaneity and meaning. So I think that we definitely have to, for myself, my mission these days is just like to throw bombs on things, and try to be as radical as we can. And if you have that in mind, I think you have chances of looking, having your eyes open and looking closer to what matters to you and to your people, and looking inside and find solutions instead of looking for that orchestral job for the rest of our life to spend 30 years. Nothing against it, do it. It's an amazing thing and you have to have it. But we can also look at things differently. Even the established organizations like Indiana University, always rethinking. We are a society in constant movement. We face a pandemic and we close our doors. And I think that's, not acceptable. Definitely not acceptable. And we cannot stand at it. We cannot look at the Metropolitan Opera and look at the board's eyes and say, like, in the most needed moment of existence when we were alive, we just stayed home, and we just washed our hands and watched Netflix for 2 years as classical musicians. That's not knowing the power of what you do. And I just wanted to, especially for you guys that you young musicians, I think I didn't know when we started this project the value of what comes out of my bell. And now I know, and it's like there's not an estimation of how expensive that is. Because that's not only the trumpet sound that comes out of my bell. There's something much bigger than that. And I think if classical music institutions are treating that as something that you can, it's a minor thing. I think it's a question of value, how we're valuing things. And again, I think we have to be radical on our way of thinking and playing and being, So yeah, this was my Música para Respirar presentation. It was supposed to be, I just did this last slide today. I was supposed to finish here, which is very emotional. But I decided to be more radical just 5 minutes ago to see if there's any response to that.